Committee. The meeting on Tuesday, October 15th at 3 p.m. Rich is going to be a little late. He'll be, he said he'd be about 15 to 20 minutes late. So we'll start the meeting off and make sure that we do everything we can. Michelle or Kathy, is there any public comment?
No, there's no public comment.
All right. Moving on to changes of the agenda. We will be having an executive session based on matters which will imperil the public safety if disclosed. So we'll do that at the end of the meeting. So can I have a motion for the minutes approval for September 17th?
I'll move them.
Mike, thank you. Second, please. I need a second. Henry?
Yes.
All right, thank you. All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye, okay. I'll approve. We have appointments today, and the appointments are for the advisory board appointments. Emergency response.
Glenn,
Yes.
excuse me. The executive session, I believe, is related to those appointments. And I think they need to be done at the end of the meeting.
Okay, then we'll stop. Thank you.
Sure.
Where are we? Chair's report. Rich is not here, so I'll wait for him to talk a little bit about that. Now we're down to Jason.
Not seeing Jason joining us quite yet. I'll just jump on and say that I believe that Jason was intending for his report to introduce Deanna to everyone. Deanna's our Chief Equity Diversity Officer for those who haven't met her yet, and she was going to give just the committee a brief overview of her role. Is that right, Deanna?
Yes, thank you, Lisa.
Deanna.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the very warm welcome that I've received. Most important news happening in my life is that I'll be moving to the city of Ithaca next Friday, so I'm very excited to take that trek from Wichita to Ithaca. So it'll be a 3-day drive. We're doing it the long way with the moving truck and driving the car. So thank you for the warm welcome, but more importantly, in terms of the work and serving the citizens, I've been here for a little bit more than a month, and so folks have asked me, what are you doing? What is your role? The role of the Chief Equity and Diversity Officer to look at structural concerns related to diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. And so identify how our service delivery becomes more fair and equitable, and how we can continue to serve our clients to the highest level possible. So over the past 30 days, I've spent a lot of time, thank you, Martha. I spent a lot of time, I've met with over 30 to 40 folks, both internally and externally, met with all of the department heads. I've met with a lot of the JEDI team members, looked at the history of the work in the community, looked at the climate survey, looked at different trainings, spent a lot of time with other chief equity and diversity officers across the country, knowing that we're not alone in the struggles that we have are not unique. And so what does that mean in terms of the work? It means diversity belongs to all of us, but that means that it's a shared responsibility. That means I'll be coming to each of you and saying, you know, where's the heavy lift that we all need to be responsible for in terms of the work? One of the things that we're working on is launching the anti-racist and equity agenda. We often receive media requests and media requests for updates and things of that nature. And we are proud to highlight the work that we're doing this far. And so making sure that those tenets move ahead. Also, one of the main tenets of that work is working with Team JEDI, the 38 committed folks who have signed up and volunteered, done lots of great work. Actually, tomorrow, I'll be with the visioning group that's going to be looking at developing a vision statement. Also, as a part of that, doing some of that work across working with the Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee, looking at how some of this work ties between the diversity statement and the Tompkins County values. So making sure that what we do starts the 100,000-foot view and filters down to down to the ground level. So ensuring that our work is both effective and has a level of efficacy to it, and ensuring that we are there for the citizens. This Saturday, we're excited to participate in racial equity training, groundwater training that's provided by the Racial Equity Institute. And we'd like to thank Leslyn for providing that opportunity to the staff and to the JEDI team members. And so we're honored to be a part of the team. And then the last thing I'd like to say is we're going to meet the moment in terms of being there, in terms of our citizen response. And so part of that work looks at some of the public safety reform work that we're doing at this time. And so we're excited about the meeting that Jason will be leading this afternoon. And so I know lots of folks have that on their calendar. So we'll be there and attentive and taking notes and ensuring that we're responsive to those questions. And so we look forward to launching this work in a more forceful way and then making sure I think most importantly, we're examining ourselves as an organization and making sure that what we do filters to the community. And that's the most important thing that we can do. So with that, I'll stand for any questions that you may have.
Any questions from anybody? Deanna, welcome, and
Thank you.
have a safe trip next week.
Thank you.
So, if not, Lisa, you have anything else?
I think that covers our update from county administration for today. Thank you.
All right, we're moving on quickly, everyone. Department of Emergency Response, Brian. You're muted.
Sorry about that. In interest of full disclosure, I'm out of town this week, visiting grandkids and so on and so forth. One thing I did do was change my first name to Morey, if you'll notice. So I've been fairly busy this week. I would just soon jump in. We have a bunch of guests from Cornell. So I'd just soon jump into our PowerPoint presentation that we have. And I assume, Kathy, you're going to cue that up? Kathy?
No, Brian, I don't have that. Do you want me to do?
Hang on, I thought Brian Wilbur sent it to you. Can he cue it up?
Yes, he can. He can share his screen.
Okay. All right.
I apologize, I didn't realize that.
All right. While we're doing that, let me just take a little trip down memory lane. One of the, well, not one of the major projects, the major project that the Department of Emergency Response has been involved with, at least since I've been there, is we do not have a 911 backup center. You guys that have been with this committee right along, or even just a short time, have heard me say that probably over and over again. That is a very bad situation for Tompkins County. In fact, I know of no other county that doesn't have backup capability at all, to which we don't. So that's been since probably April of last year. We've been doing our due diligence as far as research. We've researched standalone facilities within county facilities or new construction. None of that seemed to be desirable from a cost standpoint. We also looked at a bunch of shared opportunities. And initially we engaged all of the local colleges. We actually even engaged other counties to do a shared kind of a regional approach. And frankly, we did go down the road quite a ways with Cortland County. In between, if you'll recall, we also needed to upgrade our microwave communication system, which we did this year. It was a $1.8 million project, and happy to say that is completed. But even prior to that, we went back and started to re-engage again some folks as far as the backup center. And through some work that we had been doing with Cornell anyway, with regards to radio systems and so forth, we really started to take a hard look with them. I gave it the analogy that, we danced with them a little bit last year, but now we've actually slow danced with them, and I think we've fallen in love with them. So as would happen. Through our talks, I think both sides agree that this concept makes a whole lot of sense. It would be tantamount to a town-gown project. We already use or share systems or use like systems. It just makes a ton of sense to go down this road. We've actually been meeting between departments, ours and their public safety, for probably the last 2 to 3 months. We came to a point where we actually wanted to get some executive level buy-in, which we did 2-3 weeks ago through a meeting with the county administrator and Vice President Rick Burgess at Cornell, Chief Dave Honan from the police department up there. What we're looking to do is to embark on what's going to be a fairly aggressive, basically plan to do this. And through county administration, he's given us until June of next year, which is 9 months, to really go through the nuts and bolts of this, not only from a technology standpoint and an engineering standpoint, but also, we have 2 organizations that are going to be melding a whole lot of things together. So there's going to be a lot of work in terms of MOUs, things of that nature, that we'll have to work through. So I mean, all of us that are involved in this project are pretty excited about the prospect of doing this. We're not at a point where we're going to ask, any of the decision makers for any sort of commitment in terms of money or anything like that. That would certainly come later. But we are going to see this project through with the hopes of, by June of next year, that we have a project that works for both sides. That's a win-win. That we are then able to give you the information you need as far as decision-making, not the least of which is cost. Although I can tell you that one of the reasons why we go down this road is, we certainly anticipate that with a shared center also comes shared costs, which would drive the price tag down. But we'll have measurables for that as we go along. At this point, I do want to turn it over just to give a real rudimentary overview of the project, what it is currently, what we're going to be looking for at the end. And I'm going to turn this now over to Brian Wilbur, who is charged with project management of this project. And I know he has a couple of preliminary slides, but I don't see how I take them down. So why don't you do that as well, Brian?
Okay, so I'm assuming you're all looking at a slide, a PowerPoint slide on your screens. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to try and keep this brief. You have I think you all received a very brief 2-page overview of what we're talking about. And the level of complexity involved in this project will probably result in feet-thick piles of papers, plans, and drawings. But for the moment, we're talking concept. The tower in the picture is one of our county's communications towers. We have 11 of them altogether. And I want this to move. There we go. I wanted to be cute and provide something that would graphically illustrate our problem. And it comes down to this. If you're looking for the backup center, you can't find it because it doesn't exist. If you can see my arrow down in the lower right corner is the location of our existing 911 center in the Department of Emergency Response, adjacent to the Tompkins County Airport. And we've often, Kelles humor, I suppose, talked about the potential for a catastrophic incident because of its proximity to the airport. But the point is, no matter how the primary center might be adversely impacted, the problem is we don't have another place to go. I'm sorry, but okay. This is our current center, and it's just a quick look at it. It's a very well-appointed center. It was built and went into service in 2004, and it still serves us very well. But again, it's the only one we've got. Similarly, Cornell operates a 911 center. If, as in the flyer I sent out, they're a city of 30,000 or so on East Hill, and they have an equivalent amount of call volume and demands for service that they need to be able to receive and respond to appropriately. This is their primary center in Barton Hall, and this is their backup center. It's a fully functioning center. One view in the circle is in the back of the center looking out to the corridor. The other shaded view is from the corridor looking towards the back of the center. But Cornell does have both a primary and a backup center. The project we're talking about here is integrating systems. Everything we do involves systems. And in this case, we have many, many systems that all are integrated together, both in our standalone centers, and they would be even more so in the shared center. The diagram you're looking at are the locations of the county's 11 tower sites, ranging from Groton and Enfield down to Newfield and Danby over in Caroline and Dryden, and on one right there at the airport. You can see the Tompkins County 911 Center is right there at the airport. It's a part of that. Those lines represent the microwave radio shots from tower to tower to tower. And they all start at the microwave source in the 911 center there by the airport. The Cornell Center is not far, and that provides some opportunities for us, which I'll talk about ever so briefly in just a second. But you can see geographically where things are situated. And the radio communication system that we're looking at is owned and operated by Tompkins County. It went online in 2008. It was an expensive project, but the terrain and geography in Tompkins County pretty well demanded that we build it out this way so that we had the coverage that we enjoy today. Recently, very recently, Cornell was able to connect directly to our communications or radio system by using a fiber optic link from the Cornell campus and their center to our center so that they have radio consoles in their dispatch operation that link directly to our radio system. There are several, we talked briefly about the radio system. There are other systems. The radio system is a Motorola system, and Cornell is using Motorola, obviously. We are standardized on Motorola. Similarly, we share same vendor on the 911 phone systems, which are very specialized, as you might expect. And the phone systems we have are made by Vesta. And we, the county, receives phone inputs from the public telephone switch network, which leaves the Verizon central office and ends up at the Department of Emergency Response on Brown Road. That switch network is not only Verizon, of course, it's Frontier, it's Trumansburg, it's AT&T Cellular, it's T-Mobile Cellular. It is all of the public phone systems that are out there go through specific routing to end up in Verizon, who in turn ports it to the local 911 center or public safety answering point. Similarly, Cornell University also has a Vesta 911 phone system, and they are taking input from the Cornell University telephone switch network. It's a small city. It's very, very similar to what we're doing. And the great advantage we have here is that if we were to develop a shared center, we could take components that we already have. Each Vesta 911 phone system has an A side and a B side for a primary or secondary. We can use our secondaries in the shared center to create the phone answering, switching, and management system that we would both need to link not only our public or our out-facing phone network, either the public telephone or Cornell, but link each network within the shared center, thus increasing efficiency, redundancy, and effectiveness of our operations. And similarly, we have computer-aided dispatch systems and records management systems. The computer-aided dispatch system is where the dispatcher on duty will enter the information received from a phone call, and that system will, as they put in the location of the call, the nature or type of call, will come back with a response plan showing who or what agency needs to respond, so that the dispatcher can in turn make the dispatch and provide the help that's being requested. We in Tompkins County have a Flex CAD system, and similarly, Cornell University has a Flex CAD system. The opportunity this provides is we increase our base of knowledge, and we can share a FlexCAD backup and disaster recovery server in a shared backup center, which Tompkins County does not have right now. We store data, but we don't have an operable backup CAD system if something were to happen. So we have the ability to share the CAD system, the computer-aided dispatch system, and you'll notice they're both Flex. And I will mention that the radio, the phone, and the CAD are all manufactured or sold under the Motorola umbrella. So there's a lot of standardization and similarities there that when you're trying to make very complex systems talk or play nicely with each other, that's an important consideration. So those are all opportunities for us and things we hope to take advantage of in terms of efficiency, effectiveness, and in terms of the costs that would be required to make this a reality. Not to suggest that this is all we've done. We do have a much more involved proposal, which would not have been appropriate for this particular meeting to get into the weeds with, but I'll make it available, we'll make it available to anyone that wants it, and then spend as much time as you want to go through it and look at the work that's been done to date to get a larger sense of what work has been done, what remains to be done, what a timeline might look like, and why this is a good idea to go in the direction of a shared center between Tompkins County and Cornell University. And that, friends, is the end. I would open it back up to Brian and the rest of you for questions or comments. Thank you.
Glenn, before we move to questions, we obviously, this is a team concept project, and we do have folks from Cornell on this call. If you'd like to hear from them, I know my counterpart Mark Conrad is on right now. I don't know Chief Honan is also on. If either of you two would like to speak in terms of you know, the Cornell side of things, you know, please do.
I can talk briefly on at the higher levels, and I'd like Mark to talk a little bit about some of the technical aspects of this. I think this is just a natural progression for us to team with the county to make sure that we have staffing and the facilities to back up in an emergency response. As you can see from the pictures, we have kind of a small backup center. It works fantastic for us. But I think Cornell's commitment to pursuing a project like this would not only allow us to expand our backup center, but also have the partnership of the county, which would certainly help us in possibly some cost savings for us as well down the road, as we do, as Brian showed, we share a lot of the similar systems, and there may be some significant savings for both agencies in cost sharing some of those systems that we both use. So we're definitely committed to pursuing this proposal and seeing if we can make it work. And I'd like to turn it over to Mark and see if he can talk about some of the technical aspects that would really be you know, a win for Cornell and how we can help the county here.
Sure. Thank you, everybody, for your time. Basically, we've been working in concert with the Department of Emergency Response on a lot of projects. We always try to stay connected, even if it's a bridge through the technology. As we grew in technology and time went on, we found out the systems are getting more and more similar, and it was easier and easier to back each other up with systems or have identical systems. Everything from the radios to the phones. The fiber optics have really been in place since early 2005, just to make sure that technology was available to share back and forth in case either center at that time had a catastrophic failure. As technology changes, it also puts different kind of needs. So a lot of the natural question I got on our side, well, what about Cornell? As we change our phone system, it's changing the technology. So it's requiring us to be more similar to the 911 center, like what they call a secondary PSAP, public safety answering point. And as we go forward, we'll lose functionality if we don't pursue this type of operation. So I think there'll be a good benefit for Tompkins County. It'll give them what we call hot backup. It'll be running all the time. There'll be instantaneous service. So in case one center or the other has to shut down for whatever reason, it could just be a building malfunction or power malfunction. Even though we got UPSs and generators at both locations, it does happen from time to time. So the outside people will never see a loss of service. That'll give either center time to get to the backup location if they have to operate for a long time out of it. So we saw this a few years ago that it was going to be a win-win. We knew our backup center was a little small for Tompkins needs because, as you can see, we can seat 2 people. Everybody else is going to be standing. So But when we circled back around, the upper management actually bought onto the idea, and they've given their support for quite some time as we move forward through the process. And from that, I guess I would open it up to any questions anybody would have.
Any questions? Henry, I can't see whether you have a question or not. Martha?
No, I do not.
I have a question. Both systems are going to be backed up by Verizon. Mark? Marie?
Basically, the systems are all independent. Verizon is the cell carrier, and they are the 911 trunk lines.
Right. So if they go down, does our system go down?
No, there's backup lines. Correct me, Brian. Brian's on that side of it. The trunk lines right now go to fire station.
Well, the Verizon is the Public Service Commission's carrier for 911 telephone lines. We have 16 that appear at 92 Brown Road. 8 of those come in from Syracuse, the other 8 come in from Endicott. So if a backhoe goes crazy south of town, we're still hopefully going to have those 8 trunks coming in from Syracuse. We do have redundant trunks already positioned in Tompkins County. They go to Central Fire Station in Ithaca, which is where the PSAP or the 911 center used to be. There was a notion at one point that that would serve as a secondary or a backup center, but that's just proven over many years that it's just not suitable for a lot of reasons. So when we get a backup center, the secondary or backup trunks, 911 trunks that exist, separate from the ones that come to the current center, will be routed to that backup center.
All right. So we aren't considering Cortland County at all. Brian?
No, not at this point. No, this is at Cornell. It's a much better fit for us than Cortland would have been.
So the backup center is going to be at Cornell University location.
Yes.
And if the electricity goes down, what happens then?
Most all of our buildings, Glenn, on campus are covered by generator. And even our backup center right now at CCC has its own independent generator, and all the systems are battery operated. So with the link between the backup center, our center, and Tompkins, our whole building's on a generator at Barton, main Barton, and we have a UPS that runs the entire room. So not just a computer, it runs the lights, the computers, the panels. So we're always on, and very rarely we, once in a great while, we might get a connection cut, but for the most part, the generators are tested every single month. That's why it's another good thing with Cornell. They test those generators every single month. We require our guys to go to the backup center every single month and run out of the backup center once per shift. That way the guys stay current. If computer's getting a little behind, needs updates, we make sure we take care of it that way.
All right.
And the same would go for our center, the exact same thing, Glenn, right now. And we too would send our dispatchers there once a month to remain familiar with the backup center.
Okay. I see Rich has just joined us, so I'm going to transfer my chairmanship over to Rich.
Glenn, you know where we're at. Why don't you keep going?
Any other questions for Mark, David, or I keep on reading Morey, but Brian?
Oh, she's here somewhere.
If that, we'll move on to the resolution. Let me find out where the resolution is. David and Mark, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And Brian Wilbur, thank you very much for making the presentation. It's very informative. Brian,
Anytime, and if you have questions in the future, don't be afraid to ask.
all right, thank you.
Glenn, if I could just add, the purpose of this was to update Public Safety Committee and then also kind of get the understanding that the next steps for this group is to really start to develop what, the cost structure would look like, what the relationship would look like, start to develop the technical, elements that need to be considered in terms of improvements, get costs related to it, understand what an operating agreement would start to look like, and really start to take this from a conceptual to a planning and then into an implementation phase to it. And I think, when we started talking about this a little while back, it seemed like a great idea. The work they've done I think is exceptional. I think it's a win-win for the county and for Cornell. And if this committee is in concurrence, I'd like to give them the go-ahead to start to materialize some things, and that we can identify what those key outcomes will be, so we can start to understand what it would look like before we actually move into an implementation.
All right, so you're looking for consensus from the committee?
Yes,
Right.
I am. Yeah.
Mike Sigler,
Yes,
do you agree?
I do agree. Yes.
All right. Henry,
yes, I agree.
Rich?
Yeah, first let me extend my apologies. Today was the day we went to get grapes at the winery or the vineyard, and the press broke. And so I was sitting there waiting, and I knew I was going to be late. So my apologies, but I knew the meeting was going to be in good hands with Glenn. And yes, Jason has talked to me about this issue. I think it's a really good idea to proceed.
And I agree too. So keep on moving forward.
Thank you. This group's done a wonderful job. We appreciate the partnership with Cornell. I think this is a really good, it's a good example of our partnership doing more than just a town-gown relationship. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, great.
Thank you.
Brian, you have a resolution of a budget adjustment for Department of Emergency Response. It's ID 9626. Do you have any comments?
No,
Okay.
I don't have it in front of me. I'm sorry. Maybe I can defer to Jess. Do you have it right there?
I do have it, yes. This was grant money received and just replacing funds that were used to purchase the listed equipment.
Okay. Can I have a motion? Rich, second. Mike?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Glenn,
Rich, what?
Glenn, I think you should do a roll call vote on these.
We're going to do a roll call. Michael Sigler,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Henry Granison,
Yes.
and I vote yes, so that's unanimous. Any other questions? Brian, Tomstat report.
Okay. You should have received those. Are there any questions related to any of the numbers?
Michael Ziegler?
Yes.
I mean, do you have any questions?
No, I have no questions.
Henry?
No questions.
Jesus, first.
Yeah, I would just note domestic disturbances seem to be up this month, which is unfortunate. We're up at 109, is it? When our average is 86. So that's been stubborn through the pandemic, which is really unfortunate. And I know the sheriff's department and the task force has worked on this, and the resources are available, but I just think it's much harder to get them out there where they're needed. So, anybody have any great ideas? Love to hear them. Overdoses seem to be lower, which is a good thing.
I actually read about that earlier, and I think that's not only a statewide trend, but a nationwide trend, which I thought was interesting. Throughout the pandemic, it's been lower.
Oh, I had read some places it's actually gone up, but we've certainly seen a decrease, which is good.
Any other questions? And thanks, whoever changed my name on there. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Go ahead, Rich. You're on Sheriff's Department.
Okay, well, Glenn, again, thank you. We're up to the Sheriff's Department. Sheriff, welcome.
Thanks, Rich. Good afternoon, everybody. You have our written report, so we'll certainly take any questions. Just to add to that, everybody knows, I believe, that Jason's presentation is tonight as part of our law enforcement reform efforts. My presentation will be October 22nd at 4:30. I'm sure information will be sent out to everybody how to link up to that. So looking forward to that. Lastly, we recently took the One Mind campaign pledge. That's a new program, or a program that exists with the International Association of Chiefs of Police that requires us to partner with a community health organization to enhance law enforcement engagement with people with mental health disorders or people that are in crisis or have developmental disabilities. We're hoping to work with the health department, mental health on that. Some of the requirements is having that partnership, but also developing a model policy. And we have to train all our deputies on crisis intervention team training. The standard is 20%, but in hopefully partnering with the Institute for Police Mental Health and Community Collaboration to bring this training in, we're hoping to get up to 75% of our people trained on that. The ones that aren't will also, instead of that, will receive mental health first aid training. So we're looking forward to that, and we think that'll bring a lot to our community and our agency. Jen, did you have anything else you wanted to mention on that, or did I cover it all?
No, I think you covered it all.
Okay.
I mean, you have 12 to 36 months to get this accomplished, but we already have a pretty well-established policy, and we're hoping to start communications with the mental health department soon. So I'm confident that we'll be able to get it done within a year.
And last thing I got, kind of interesting, all the work we've done on our policies and getting them on our website for public viewing. We actually got a call from the sheriff in Jackson County, Missouri, that wanted to copy our policies to include the duty to intervene, and thought it was wonderful. So I thought that was kind of cool. But that's all I have. So any questions, I'll certainly take them.
I hope you charged a reasonable fee for those policies.
Yeah, exactly. I should have thought.
Yeah, I have a couple things. One, I'd like the committee to know how much work Derek and Jen have been doing on the police reform project. We are having meetings of the whole group, but also subgroups, and they have attended and presented. Jen talked about our ATIs. Was it yesterday? The days blend together, but I think there's some really good work that could come out of all this. You know, we're going to have Jason's presentation this evening. Well, starting, I think, at 5 o'clock. And as the sheriff indicated, he's going to present. Is it next Wednesday? What day?
It's the 22nd. I'm not sure what day that falls on. Thursday.
Thursday. Okay. One thing that is interesting to me, and by the way, is what's going on with the local protests. You know, there has been a regular protest every Sunday, and the protest is fine, but they do seem to be doing some things to really challenge the Ithaca City Police Department. And it's my understanding, Sheriff, that you went down and supported the Ithaca City Police Department last Sunday.
Correct. Yeah. The lieutenant that was on duty that day for Ithaca Police called our agency and asked for some assistance. You know, most of the protesters were fine, but, you know, anytime you get a group together, there's always a handful of people that want to stray and cause issues. And that's exactly what happened this past Sunday. They started spraying spraying graffiti on the sidewalk on the actual front doors of the PD itself. pretty horrible things that they had to say through that graffiti. So they called us. We went down there. Our deputies did participate in taking into custody 2 people. They were released shortly thereafter with appearance tickets. I responded down there myself. Time I got there, the arrests were already made, and the crowd dispersed about 10 minutes later.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really good, the support you're able to offer. I think there's some real strains in public safety in the city right now, which make me nervous about where this could go. And it also brings to mind that there seems to be a major disconnect, that we are really looking very hard at police reform from all sorts of different directions. And the city is deeply involved as a partner in this, but the protesters don't seem to recognize that. I don't know if they think that we're being disingenuous, that we don't really mean it, or that they're just not aware of it. I think they're also not aware of all the innovative things that we've done in this county in terms of alternatives to incarceration, in terms of bail reform, in terms of our treatment courts, where we're really, I think, making it to our criminal justice system in a different way. And if there's further communication streams we should be using to make sure our message is getting out of what we're at least trying to do. I'd love to hear comment on that if anybody has thoughts.
Rich, it's Lance. I think a couple of things. I think you're right. I think my sense, some of these protests are based on national trends or things going on and less local. I mean, a lot of the things they're discussing aren't critical issues we see locally. My sense is, well, I haven't had discussions with Derek, but I had discussions with some IPD officers who were pushed back. They're like, we don't engage in those things. So they're, they don't like being, having that thrown at them. So I think some of it is a result of national, but I also think there is, they're not engaged. They may not be aware of, I think this is true of most people in the county, frankly, I think don't have a good understanding of the processes that have been put in place in the criminal justice system. Frankly, they may be a little aware, but they don't really understand how they play out. And probably a lot of the protesters aren't aware. And part of it is they want to challenge and see change, and they haven't been engaged with. Probably, my sense is the city hasn't really, they're more focused in the city, and I don't think, looking from afar, the city administration, I don't think is actively engaged with them on the issue to some degree. So I think that's part of it.
Yeah, Martha?
I was going to talk about something else. So why don't you go ahead? I think Henry had his.
Okay. Henry.
Yeah, I was going to talk about something else too.
All right. Anybody else on this issue of communication?
Well, actually, yeah, I would say, Rich, I mean, we saw it with the decarcerate group, over the years since we built the new outdoor space and had indoor beds made out of the recreation room. It can be an ongoing challenge. I don't know that anybody on this whole Zoom screen or in our system is the right messenger. Maybe we'll see what develops with the, who's on the call tonight and October 22nd and try to see if there's some allies who might be a better messenger for what we're already doing.
Well, good point. I think we need to do something. I think we need to make that connection so that if the protesters really knew what the facts are on the ground in Tompkins County, they would say, well, there is a good faith attempt here, and we're not representative of the national, picture. We really do look pretty different. It might diffuse the situation a little bit, because I'm afraid this is going in a really bad direction. Because it does seem like there's increasing provocations to try to get a reaction out of the police. The spray painting was just the latest of a whole series of things that really are, you know, you could say it's impolite behavior, but it really goes well beyond that. Screaming in somebody's ear, whether they're a police officer or not, is just wrong. You know, and I don't know that you're convincing anybody that your cause is right. And I think they do have a good cause, but it's just not the way to present it. And we're going to have trouble in the community, I'm afraid.
Rich, it's Lansky. I think you're right in terms of the communication issue. My sense is that some of this may be propelled by a sense of you're ignoring us on an issue that's very important and critical. So we're going to become more vociferous until you pay attention. And I think looking at some of their comments, some of the things they're doing are a challenge to see if it's like, okay, you care more about property than you care about us as people, which I think are provocations. And I think that probably fundamentally comes from a lack of, you're not engaging with us. You're trying to, from their perception, you're trying to ignore us. So we're going to become more vocal until you, you know, communicate with us. You know, I think that may be something for you to think about. I think, frankly, I get myself in trouble. That's that real responsibility is city leadership who should be doing that, taking the lead on that. And maybe it is, and I've missed it, but frankly, I haven't seen it. Told you I'd get myself in trouble.
There, you're in trouble. Anybody else wants to speak on this issue? Sheriff?
Yeah, I'll just say, you know, whatever's going on in the city, it's certainly not good from a public safety standpoint. I mean, the type of serious incidences we're seeing seem to be definitely increasing. I know from our own internal county conversations, you know, we're having increased problems down at the DSS building, which is a county building, obviously, but in the city, we have some issues at the recycling center that, you know, some people just feel like they're not getting addressed. And, you know, and this did also lead with a protest to sheriff's deputies having to respond down to the city and help deal with the issue at hand. I mean, this is something that, you know, we've never really had to be concerned about before. And, you know, my budget certainly isn't built by you to handle incidences in the city, but, you know, I'm really getting concerned about what's going on down there. And, you know, I just don't know, you know, if it's because the city IPD truly doesn't have the resources they need or they're just not acting. I'm not sure what it is. I mean, I have reviewed their budget and I know their staffing numbers and I know they're heads and shoulders above us. And we don't seem to be having these problems keeping up. So I'm not sure what's going on, but it is getting to a point where I'm getting concerned. I mean, now we're seeing a robbery that happened just outside of one of our buildings when we had county employees coming and going from the building. There was another one that just happened while I was logging onto this meeting. I think it's just something we're going to have to really be focused on and see what happens.
Yeah, Leslin.
Thank you, Rich. I think Lance was on the track of where I wanted to go. I want to take up too much of your time. And, you know, the folks who are leading the Sunday protests, I think this is the Truth and Justice group, not to be confused at all with Black Lives Matter. Very different. They are feeling like they're not being heard. It is not. I wouldn't characterize that they don't know what we're doing. They know what are the things that are in this county. They know what are the Alternatives-to-Incarceration Programs that we've been managing. Many of the leaders of that group are well aware of the things that we have been offering. Some of them participated in when we did the CTR study and understand very well. I think what is happening, as Lance put, is they feel like what is mattering to them right now is not being heard. no one is listening. Folks aren't talking to them. I know there've been attempts, but they are not necessarily at the place being ready to talk, although they're saying that. Within the community, I can tell you that there are other folks in the community who are looking to have a conversation with the leadership of that group, because for many of us, it is not advancing the cause for what it is you are out there protesting about. And I think they probably will or may hear from others in the community better than they would hear from us in elected office or even in law enforcement. So we're trying, some people are going to be trying to meet with this group so that we can understand what it is that they're trying to get. For many of us who support the Black Lives Movement, bringing out, you know, an apartment load of furniture and setting it down outside the courthouse and outside of IPD doesn't make any sense to us. Like, what is it accomplishing? We're not sure. So we're going to be having that conversation. They're well aware of the services that we have. They can name them off. They know how they've been working. They just want something else that they feel is not happening now. They want us to shut down all law enforcement agencies. And as far as they're concerned, until such time as we do that, we're not doing anything. Just sharing.
Yeah. Well, thank you. All right. Well, we should probably move along. I had one other question for the sheriff, which is regarding election security and safety. Do you have any special plans for the lead up to Election Day and Election Day? Are you going to do anything different for that this year?
Bringing that up, Rich, I was contacted by Steve DeWitt at Board of Election with some concerns he had. So we did develop a plan. And as you may know, normally we go out and help with ballot pickups. We have patrols that run to each polling location, pick them up and run them down to BOE so they can start tabulating them as quickly as possible. But we're going to extend that a few hours and increase patrols, use a small amount of overtime to accomplish that, just to be in the areas a little bit better. We're cognizant that we don't necessarily want to walk into the sites because we don't want anybody feeling like there's voter intimidation going on our end. So we will be there to help. We've given him clear direction on how to educate his poll workers and what they should do to get a hold of us and know that we'll be there in the area.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions on that issue? And I know I've got some hands up here. Why don't we go through those? Martha.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if Annie had her hand up about the protesters, because I thought that's when her hand went up.
Annie, did you have something on that?
Well, some of it was already covered. But I just can't enforce, or I don't want to say enforce, but it reiterate enough that if we only talk more about what happens when people who are protesting cause damage to physical property, then yes, you know, in essence, we are saying to them that's when we're going to pay attention, is not when they use their words. But on this topic, I just want to also mention that, you know, we don't know what could be happening. It could be, as far as the election, it could be that people are outside the 100-foot barrier of election poll places and doing some intimidation there. So I'm sure you're probably aware of that, but I just want to make sure. So intimidation at the election, at the poll site or 100 feet away is still intimidation. And against the law, of course.
Okay, true. Right. Martha?
So my point was packet page 20, that really beautiful graph of unsentenced inmates, the average. I mean, boy, that is where you want those lines to go. And I see 10 people as of, you know, the last couple of months. It's hard to read the months, August and September. Question here for the sheriff, the undersheriff. Is there any kind of statewide Sheriff's Association conversation about when's the right time to approach Commission on Corrections to re-examine staffing configurations? Everybody said, well, let's wait and see how bail reform plays out. And it seems like we're approaching a year with it where we've got really low populations. I wonder if you're thinking on that.
Yeah, I've given it a lot of thought, and I believe we talked about it a little bit at the last public safety meeting. I don't think you were present. It has come up, and we have had low numbers for a considerable amount of time now, which I think would help. Part of the problem we're still going to have is the linear style jail we have in classifications. That's going to hurt us. And the concern that I mentioned last time is, yeah, I can certainly ask for a staffing analysis, and I'm ready to do so if we come to some kind of consensus that we want to do that. However, I am a little concerned. I know when one was done years ago, and of course our numbers were, through the roof back then. They had came back to the sheriff at the time with requesting or requiring an inordinate amount of COs, and that whole process had to be backpedaled and renegotiated to get the number down. So there's a little danger in that too. I can't see how they could come back and say we need more, but I can't say my relationship with them since I've been sheriff has led me to feelings of trust. So it's just something to keep in mind, Martha.
Absolutely. All right. But you know best. Thank you, Sheriff.
Yeah, Henry.
Yes, thank you, Sheriff. I know last night the chief of police talked about how civil service allowed them to get a waiver to recruit nationally. And I was wondering whether you got the same waiver.
No, we have not. And in fact, I actually watched that presentation last night and I heard him mention that. And that's the first time I'd ever heard of such a thing, to be honest with you. No, I haven't done that then. I don't know if we necessarily need to at this point. We've been pretty fortunate with the number of recruits we've been able to solicit, either off the civil service list or through lateral transfers. I would like the road patrol side to be a little more diverse than it currently is. We've seen more diversity come in on our correction side for whatever reason. So it could possibly help with that. I'm not sure. But at the end of the day, I do prefer our hires, if we can, to be local people that are invested in our community. I think there's a benefit to that as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Mike.
We're already past where I raised my hand. We're good.
No, you're okay? All right. Anything else for our sheriff? Okay, great. Let's keep moving. District Attorney, welcome, Matt. How are you doing?
Everybody, I'm good. Hi, Rich. I'm going to start off by saying that just quickly with regard to the protests, I'm personally trying to pay really close attention to what's happening with the reinventing public safety and police reform in this community. And I don't see anything in terms of public relations or any kind of information going out to the public about what's happening. And if a lot is happening behind the scenes, nobody knows about it. And this is coming from somebody who I've volunteered myself several times to be part of these committees and have been told, okay, you'll have the time, you'll be part of it, but I haven't been. And I'm going to reiterate that again. I want to be part of these conversations. So that's what I'm seeing, and I think that that's contributing to what's happening in the community with the protests. Is they really don't know what's happening, and if lots of things are happening, it's not being published to the community.
I think you're right, Matt, and that was kind of my point. Is that we are hearing the words and the governor's executive order and the seriousness that we've taken it in this county and the city, demonstrate at least a good faith intent to listen. And that message, I don't know that has been received. And that if it was, it might help diffuse things a bit. But Henry.
Yes, I know that I just recently joined the committee, and I know Jason's event at 5 is really the first introduction to basically what we're doing in the county. I know that Savante held a forum in August, and that was it. And then we sent our press releases, but we haven't really engaged the public yet. And we plan on doing that very soon to get people involved. And I know that we did a survey And I didn't see the results, but I heard most of the results did come from city residents. And so they now know about our situation, and we'll see how things go at 5 o'clock, and how many people we get on the YouTube meeting to again sort of see how we're doing.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I was part of that, the meeting, the city meeting that Savante put together in August. And so, maybe this is the start of a more public looking process. And I think that's really where we need to go from here on out, so that people understand that, stuff is happening. So as far as, what's happening with my office, I had a conversation with Judge Miller this afternoon. He indicated that county mental health court or wellness and recovery court is going to start at the beginning of 2021. That's another ATI that will supplement the city wellness and recovery court that has been a big success so far. And in addition to that, the city jurisdiction is going to expand so that mental health court can be available for the outlying towns and villages. So that if someone is has a criminal case in a town court that would be appropriate for mental health court, their case can be transferred to city court and it can be handled in that jurisdiction. So I think that's a positive note of progress with regard to that important ATI that fills a gap where we have treatment-based, but also mental health-based needs that I think are really, it's working in the city. So I'm happy about that. Looking at my office staffing, we've been operating with 8 attorneys, which is one less than is on our books for the last 10 months. Going into next month, I have an attorney who is pregnant and will be going out on maternity leave in November. And then when she comes back, another assistant DA's wife is giving birth in January. So I'm really keeping my fingers crossed that the recommended budget is going to go through with regard to my staffing, and that I can really start a process of looking nationally for a diverse candidate pool for my 9th attorney position. I've talked to Deanna about that. I'm hoping to talk to Ruby, the new HR director, and get her help with a national search, because we really do need to have a diverse candidate pool. I've been on the JEDI committee, and that's, I think, going very well. And I'm looking forward to this forum tonight at 5 o'clock to listen to some of the input from the community, and looking forward to being more directly involved in that process. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Yeah. Matt, I think you will be involved. I don't see how it can proceed the way we need to go without your input. Mike?
I'm anxious.
Go ahead, Mike.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear
I
you.
wasn't actually going to bring this up, but then Matt brought it up again, and this isn't really directed toward Matt. I'm just much less optimistic than you guys. I don't, and I don't mean to be, and I'm trying not to be pessimistic, but it seems to me that there's a group of protesters that I think we're seeing like we're going to try to break through to them, and I don't see that group of protesters coming to the table. I'll be surprised if maybe they'll come tonight and they'll listen. I don't see that though. I mean, when you're writing vile things at the police department, like calling people pigs and killers, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not actually going to have a sit down with them. If they want to come and talk and be a rational human being, then we can talk about it. But I don't think that person's all that interested in reform. There are certainly community members who have come and asked for reform, and they're players that they're going to get a seat at the table. But I think, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I'm a little more, I mean, I think that certain people, and rightfully so, think that we've dropped the ball on certain things, and not we, maybe not certainly not the sheriff's department, but maybe the city, right? I mean, there was 100 sexual assault cases that were in the paper, and some people were laying the blame on one officer, and then they were laying the blame on supervisors, and I don't know any of that, right? I don't know who should be held to account. I do know that 100 sexual assault cases weren't investigated, and I think people are looking at that going, if you're not there as a police force to help me, yeah, reform is a pretty good idea. But I don't think that's the same group of people that are writing vile things on the police department and shouting out their car windows at police officers. I don't know how police officers would earn their respect back. I think that's gone. Those people, I think, are just a different subset of people. And frankly, it concerns me that subset of people has really kind of taken over a lot of these, a lot of the protests. A lot of the protesters are there for noble causes, but then you have that subset that they're not really on board with what needs to get done governmentally. So I don't know. I'm sorry to be pessimistic about it, but anyway, you brought it up, Matt. I was going to let it go.
No, I can't totally disagree with you, Mike.
I don't think you convince everybody, but I think there is an opportunity here, and there is a basis for optimism that we can build a better system. Are we going to bring everybody to say this is a better system and we appreciate all the work you did? Probably not, because you're right. There are some people that just, their joy is in spray painting nasty things and yelling in ears and moving furniture, apparently. But the majority of people, I think, see that there's needed change, and we need to try to get there. That's my view. But yeah. All right, Matt, anything else? Martha, you had a question.
Yeah, I just think you have to go all out and do everything you can to reach people wherever they are. And often you don't reach those people, but you reach the people who are listening from the sidelines. And you make contacts, and you never know where you've struck a note. And listening to people and treating people with respect. Frankly, I don't think that's ever wasted time or wasted effort. You may not know how it pays off or when it pays off, but it's the right thing to do.
Not that I'm disagreeing with you, shouldn't we demand the same respect, though, from the public for our police officers and for our people? We would certainly not allow somebody to walk into one of our meetings and say something about, like they've been saying about police officers, to facilities, right? You wouldn't let that happen, or to a caseworker in DSS, or, pick the department, weights and measures. You wouldn't let that happen. So I understand what you're saying, but I think we need to demand some respect for our people as well.
Yeah, certainly part of what led me to bring this issue up was listening to Chief Nair yesterday talking about the level of morale in the city police department. And he said it's as low as it can be, that the officers are really, really tired, and they've exercised real restraint, but yeah, they would like some recognition of the work that they do and their response. I'm not sure they're going to get it from a certain segment, but again, that makes it, I think, a more dangerous situation if you've got police officers who are exhausted and have the morale very low. Anyway, we'll see more. We'll see more. Anything else, Matt? Any other questions for our district attorney? Okay, Lance, assigned counsel, welcome.
Thanks, Rich. I'm going to be real quick. I guess assigned counsel, we're pretty much same old, not a lot to tell you about. You know, if you have questions about anything specific, I'm happy to answer them. We're just plugging away, you know, staff's all here engaged, working. I guess the good news I can report is our first 2 quarter reimbursements have come back from the state, fully reimbursed in a timely fashion. We've just sent out our 3rd quarter reimbursements. So we'll see here in a few weeks how those go, but we expect those to come back the same, which is good news for us in terms of those grants and contracts we have. We haven't seen any of the 20% cuts. Part of that is because there's a special indigent legal services fund at the state level that funds a lot of what we're doing. That money comes from, as Rich and Matt probably know, escrow accounts of firms and so forth. That generates that money. So it gets treated a little differently, but good news for us because we're getting our money back from the state. Other than that, we're on business as usual. I guess I'd echo, and from my conversations with Jason, I think we're going to be brought in on this, but I'm also very anxious to be involved in the police reform discussions. You know, I haven't seen anything, kind of like Matt. I'm kind of echoing what Matt said. So I trust that's going to happen. That's my expectation, but I'm very interested in being involved as well. I'll kind of end it there unless somebody has any questions for me.
Well, thank you for pitching in, Lance. And yes, I anticipate you will need to be involved as we lumber along with this.
I'm probably going to regret that statement. You know, I'll want to withdraw it here in a month.
Too late.
Say, take it back. Leave me alone.
Anything for our assigned counsel? Okay.
I just want,
Yeah.
sorry, Rich, I just wanted to offer for both Lance as well as Matt that I believe that they have been added to the list of participants with CPE and the city and the county in this whole police reform effort. So you should be hearing something very soon about what's happening and next steps in the process.
Checks in the mail.
Yep, you heard it.
Wait a minute. I want to compare my check to Matt's check and see.
All right, next meeting, we'll compare checks. Probation. Dan Cornell, welcome. I saw over there. Yes.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Probation Department is also willing to be part of the discussion as far as the law enforcement reimagination conversation. I've been trying to educate myself doing some webinars, one run by DCJS and some others, just to learn more about what's being asked for. And I think with the escalation that we're seeing in the community, if I can speak to that just briefly, the protests have been going on peacefully for a long, long time. And I think it is essential that a communication go out immediately, perhaps from this body. In our world for behavior modification, you praise what you want to reinforce. You praise the behavior that you want to see repeated. And I think that goes not only for the praising the peacefulness largely of the protesters up to this point, but also praising the professionalism of the police who quite honestly feel unsupported. And they've been tasked with a very difficult process. And if we want them to, come to the table and converse in good faith as far as what reforms need to be made, we need them to know that we appreciate and respect what they do. So that's all I'll say to that point. Our numbers here are going up. I put out a communication today to my department thanking them for the nearly 3,000 face-to-face contacts they've made with probationers since COVID began. Almost 500 of those were home contacts out in the community, and the other 2,400 were face-to-face contacts here at our office. I think we need to be very proud of that. I think the face-to-face interactions with the community from service providers is still a little lacking, and it concerns me given that November and December going into the the winter time, the less daylight, the holidays, all the pressures that go along with that, we see a lot of problems in our population just succumbing to negative coping skills during those periods of time. So we would like to see as much as possible re-engagement of face-to-face contacts with our service providers as much as they can possibly do. A lot of them are still remote, which with COVID ramping up, I understand people's reluctance, but I think we've demonstrated that it can be done safely if proper protocols are followed, and I think it's what the community that we serve is looking for. Overall, our numbers are going up.
You went on mute somehow.
I apologize. That was the computer trying to shut me up.
Dan, actually, if I could ask you a question, why are the numbers going up? Is it because the courts are processing more people?
Yes. Yep. We're seeing more investigations both on the criminal court and the family court side. We're not quite back to normal numbers, but we're getting close. The drug court programs numbers have gone up a little bit, which is wonderful. I wanted to add to what Matt said about the Ethical Wellness and Recovery Court. I don't know if it's been said here, but they recently had their first 2 graduates from that program, which is fantastic, and kudos to everyone who was involved with that. Again, jail numbers are low, our RUS numbers are fairly low. Electronic monitoring has been really low, both on the supervision level and the pretrial level, because it's so high up the ladder. It takes a lot to get people to a situation where they need electronic monitoring or qualify for it. But all in all, I think things are firing on all cylinders, and we're starting to get back to what we would more normally see this time of year.
Okay. Questions? Martha?
Yes, hi, Dan. Thanks, Rich. We had a report at the budget meeting last night or the night before. They started to blend together from OAR. And they talked about a lot of work they've been doing with parolees.
Okay.
Which sounded great. And I wonder, I know we've had some struggles getting parole to use day reporting and that kind of thing. But have you been in touch with OAR about how that's going?
I have not. I've heard about it through the grapevine, but I also I was remiss in telling you, parole was back in the building Wednesday, and I did speak with the parole officer, and I reminded him that day reporting is an option, is an alternative to incarceration if they have people that they're concerned about. And the response was a little flat, but I'm not sure I sold not sure I should be a salesman, but I tried hard, and they're aware of it. They also know, I told them about the new referral process and how we're, limited to 6 people a day. And, but we've had at least 1 opening. It's starting to get more full. Also, our community service program has reopened the day after Labor Day, as I've said before, and they've served 20 clients for about 60 community service shifts between those 20 clients. So feel good about that. We're doing that with 1 community service officer. A lot of that work's been done at Friends of the Library, and what's coming up for us that'll be a big thing will be Cops, Kids, and Toys. So.
Right. Okay. All right. Great. Thanks very much. Glad you're able to make contact with them.
Thank you.
Yeah. Dan, do you think it might be worthwhile to have another visit with the regional parole person to try to remind them about the options we have here?
I can give a call to Randy Koonsman, who's the supervisor for the area. If people think that might move things in the right direction, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay. I would certainly be happy to participate in a conversation if you think it would be helpful. If you think it wouldn't, I'm happy to stay away. But
I can't see it being a negative thing.
Okay. Any other questions for Dan or probation? Comments? All right. Dan, thank you very much, and thanks to what your people are doing. That's impressive that you're seeing lots and lots of people. It's good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. We have come to the end of our agenda, except we have an executive session. I would like to have an executive session to talk about appointments. And could I get a motion to go in? Glenn moved,
Motion.
Mike seconds. Thanks. If I could call the vote, and I'll just go in order. I see people on the screen. Mike,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Henry?
Yes.
Right, and the chair votes yes. So we'll take a minute and stop the recording. I anticipate we will come out of executive session and take one action. Is there anything else further we need to do, Kathy?